Hi, and welcome back to the Anna Angie channel. My name is Angie, and today we're going to talk about football jerseys, cleats, and helmets. So let's get into the jerseys. So first of all, you may have noticed if you've been watching football long enough that football jerseys have particular numbers on the back of them. And if you've watched the NFL, you will notice that they have a lot of different numbers and that they seem to all be the same for different players. So for instance, the quarterbacks seem to have smaller numbers, and then you have these big guys out there that have really high numbers. So you'll notice that in Pee Wee games, that the Pee Wees, they kind of just willy-nilly have numbers, and that's because the coaches are just trying to find jerseys that fit the kids, and those kids aren't in particular positions for very long, so you don't typically get a 8-year-old, 9-year-old who is just born to be a wide receiver. They're moving them around, so it doesn't really matter at that age. But when you start getting up into high school, college, and the NFL, you're going to see some trends and some things that stay the same. So 1 through 9 is going to be your quarterbacks, your kickers, and your punters. So quarterbacks, kickers, and punters will all be numbered 1 through 9. Quarterbacks can also be 10 through 19, as can kickers and punters, and wide receivers. Okay, so a wide receiver can only be in 10 through 19, but the quarterbacks, kickers, and punters essentially can be numbers 1 through 19. Okay. Your 20 through 39 is going to be your running backs and your defensive backs. And I'm sure that you're wondering what are some of these positions, and we'll get into that in a later video, but I want to just today talk about the numbers. So 20 to 39 is going to be your running back and your defensive backs. 40 to 49 is going to be running backs, defensive backs, linebackers, and tight ends. Okay. 50 to 59 is going to be linebackers, defensive linemen, and centers. 60 to 79 is going to be offensive linemen and defensive linemen. 80 to 89 are going to be your wide receivers and your tight ends. And 90 to 99 are going to be linebackers and defensive linemen. Now, I'm sure that you're probably like, who cares? Like what? Just give them a number. Well, there is a reason. And it's really to help out the referees and to know who is eligible to have a ball thrown to them, who should be in certain positions, those types of things. Now, there's all sorts of different technicalities with that. And again, we're not going to go into that because we're just doing the basics today. But it really is for the referees to understand where people are supposed to be, who's eligible for a pass, who's supposed to be doing what. So that's the whole reason that we have numbers. So let's talk about helmets and pads. So I'm not going to go too much into pads for your players other than to say, you just need to make sure that they're in good condition. If you get pads sent home, maybe they're in their pants from the high school or from the Pee Wee or whatever, and you look at them and they're split right down the middle or something, perhaps you need to take those back. But for the most part, pads are pretty self-explanatory, and they for the most part do the job that they're supposed to. Where you need to be a little bit more concerned is in helmets, and we all know with the recent issues that have gone on with concussions and those types of things, we're a lot more aware of helmets than what we used to be. So there's a website that I'm going to put below, and you can go to that website and you can check the safety rating of the helmet. And this is a website that's put out by the NFL. There's lots of really great information on the website about ratings for different safety equipment and all sorts of different things. So I would highly recommend that you go to that website, check it out, and see what they have to say about the helmets. Now, of course, if you have kids playing Pee Wee or they're playing on their 9th or 10th, even 11th and 12th grade teams, schools have only a certain amount of budget. And so if there's an issue with the safety of the helmets, it's not going to be a quick fix. So it might be something that you need to help raise funds for or whatever it might be. I would have some conversations before I started screaming and hollering about it. But know that if there's obviously huge issues, it would be good to bring that to the attention of whoever needs to know. Okay, so let's talk about cleats. So cleats are interesting because they really are important, and the kids need to have cleats. So they should have cleats. I guess I wouldn't make it a priority for your 8 or 9-year-old to have cleats, but it's certainly going to make life a lot easier for them on the field. However, once they get up to higher positions and they're playing, in high school or in, more organized rec ball type things, you're going to want to have cleats for them. If you're not sure if your kid's going to even like it, then maybe put them in a pair of tennis shoes and call it good for that season. But if they decide to play for a second season, I would definitely invest in cleats. So here's the deal with cleats. So cleats come in a 1/2 inch peg, 5/8 of an inch, or an inch peg. And when you're talking about younger kids, you want to just get them the run of the mill, just go buy them off the shelf type of cleat. They don't need to have anything special. They should just be the small 1/2 inch cleat, and usually they're rubber. There might even be rules in your school or your organization about different types of cleats, but you want to make sure that they're really just kind of your standard cleat. Now, when your kid starts to specialize, so maybe as they get into high school, definitely in college, and of course in the NFL, you're going to want to explore a little deeper into the cleat world. And the reason that you would change cleats or that you would have a longer peg versus a shorter peg is if you're playing on grass and say it's mud or it's not muddy or rainy, it's going to give you a lot more traction. So it's going to be easier and better for you to run. The problem is that if you're a receiver, if you're running down the field and you plant your left leg and you pivot to the right to catch a ball, your foot's not going to give if you've got a 1 inch cleat in. So that foot gets planted and it's staying there, which means that when you pivot, you're going to twist your knee. So you'll see a lot of those guys that they're not going to wear the longer cleats. They're going to be they need to have more ability to maneuver. And so those longer cleats aren't going to do it. So don't just go and assume like, oh, bigger is better, because it's not. You'll see guys in the NFL, if suddenly it starts to rain and the field starts to get wet, that they'll go and they'll be changing out their shoes. And a lot of times it's not just because their shoes got wet. It's because they're putting on shoes that have a longer cleat to them. So if you have kids that are playing, I would highly recommend talking to the coaches, because it's going to be different for whatever position that they play in. It's going to be different for whatever part of the country you live in. Like where I live right now, we don't get rain. Okay, it doesn't rain here. The kids don't have to worry about playing on a wet field. But if you live in the Pacific Northwest, it rains there all the time and the kids are playing in the mud and whatnot. So maybe you want to go to a 5/8 inch. But I would definitely have a conversation with the coach about, is my kid in a position where this would actually be helpful, or is this something that is just going to waste me money and it's not going to be useful or potentially could hurt my child? So that is the deal for cleats. Let's talk about mouth guards. Now this is where there's no right or wrong. You just have to have a mouth guard. That's all there is to it. Okay, so get yourself down to the sporting goods store. They're not very expensive. Take your mouth guard home. There's instructions on the back, but essentially what you're going to do is you're going to boil a cup of water. Like we get a Pyrex measuring cup, like a 2 cup, fill it up with water, stick it in the microwave, boil it. When it comes out, then you just take that mouth guard, you pop it right into the water, and there'll be instructions on the back. And basically you let it sit there for however long the instructions tell you. When it comes out, maybe you should wipe it off a little bit. We didn't the last time we gave it to my youngest nephew, and he complained a little bit about the hot water. But wipe it off for just a second, because you don't want it to get cool. So basically it's a very hard wax, and that wax will have melted, and you're going to pop it into their mouth. And you want them to not bite all the way through it, but you want them to make an impression of their teeth in it. So get it in their mouth, get that impression of their teeth, and then let it sit there till it cools off, and then take it out. The other thing that you want to make sure that you do then at that point is you as the parent need to attach it to the helmet, because these are kids, and I'm sure the kids in my house aren't any different than the kids in your house, but they will lose it. And I've seen mouth guards. I've seen kids walking around on the football field with a mouth guard in their mouth without their helmet on, just kind of sucking on it, chewing on it. Sometimes some kids like to chew on them. And I always think, when are they going to spit that out, and then somebody's going to step on it, or they're going to lose it. And if they lose it, they're not going to play. So if they go out on the field without a mouth guard in, the referees are going to say, you can't play and you need to leave. So make sure that it's attached to the front of their helmet. so that then they know who's their helmet or which helmet is theirs. They have their mouth guard and they're ready to go. They just have to grab their helmet. They don't have to run around looking for their mouth guard. So make sure that you attach it to the helmet, call it good, and then they can run out and play, and they always have their mouth guard with them. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Just kind of a quick run through of different things that we need to be concerned about with the kids, and also to make watching the NFL or whatnot a little bit more exciting, because you halfway understand what the numbers are now. In a later video, we'll talk about what those positions actually mean. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks. Hey ladies, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe it. Please send it to your sisters, your friends, your booster moms, and especially that lady down the bleachers who has no idea what's going on. Thanks for stopping into my channel. I'll see you next time.